Hello ladies and gents, and welcome to the second week of February. This week we are moving on to Project 2, which is very exciting. You submitted the final draft of your Project 1 Murder on the Orient Express Compare and Contrast essay Sunday at midnight. I am so excited to read those. Normally it takes me between 7 and 10 business days to get essay feedback back for you. So if you're thinking in terms of timelines, that's normally about how long it takes. You'll get feedback in a couple different modes for this essay. You'll get feedback in rubric comments. You'll get feedback as a gradebook note, which will kind of note some overall kind of global issues in the essay. And then you'll get line by line embedded feedback with those little blue text bubbles that you've seen in some of your past assignments. So lots of feedback on these essays, which is why it takes me a little time to get them done, because I want to make sure that you get lots and lots of information, lots and lots of suggestions for revision opportunities, so that you can learn from the writing process as you move on to the next one. Today we are going to be doing some groundwork for our next essay. Our first project, Project 1, we kind of took our time with. We laid it out. We scaffolded a lot. We did a lot of building assignments. And it was really spread out to kind of give the writing process its due, to take each of those pieces, give it a lot of attention, and then move on to the next piece, which is awesome and kind of ideal for writing, to have lots of time. But oftentimes we will find ourselves with a writing assignment that does not give us a lot of time. We have to compose something that's meaningful, that's researched, that's well organized and thought out in a much shorter time frame. So that's what we're going to practice with this next essay. For example, if you find yourself in like an anthropology class or a psychology class or a criminal justice class, something like that. I took a history class actually when I was a Running Start student at CBC, and I had an essay due every single week. It was due every Friday on a historical event. An essay every Friday. So once a week I had to write an essay. It was so fast. So we are going to be practicing some of that faster writing skill here with Project 2. So instead of having it as long and drawn out, we are doing it much more quickly. The project starts on the 8th, and you will see that the final draft is due on the 23rd. So a much more accelerated process for writing this essay to give you that practice, give you those skills that might help you in classes elsewhere. So the Project 2 essay is about this phenomenon called trial by media, and this is gaining more and more notoriety as we move into this digital age that we live in. So the concept of trial by media is that a case, when it's very high profile, if it gets covered a lot in like social media, on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, TikTok, everything, it can potentially sway a jury pool so that they come into the trial with all these preconceived ideas of guilt and who should be made to pay for the crime. And our Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, in the 6th Amendment guarantees every citizen the right to a free trial and an unbiased jury. And so how do we guarantee a jury is unbiased when we live in a digital age where people have access to all kinds of information? Sometimes it's verified information, sometimes it's just hearsay. But regardless of how valid the information is, it can sway a potential jury member before they even get into a courtroom. And so this idea of trial by media talks about how do we protect those 6th Amendment rights. And we're going to look at some specific trials and see whether their constitutional rights were upheld. They did indeed get an unbiased jury, or if maybe there was some injustice that happened and they didn't, in fact, get an unbiased jury. So we'll talk about some past court cases. I do have a list of cases you will be selecting from, simply because anything that's too recent probably hasn't resolved in court. And so these are more historical cases we'll be looking at. And this, of course, builds on our theme of revenge and justice, right? We talked about justice a lot in the Murder on the Orient Express book, in our discussion boards, and in our essay. We are continuing on with that idea of justice in this second project, because a lot of educational research seems to point out that when projects have a similar foundational concept, like justice, it's much more easy to translate skills from one project to the next. So that's a good thing. It means all the stuff you learned in project 1 will more easily transfer to project 2 and project 3 and so on and so forth. So we'll get to continue building our skill set, continue honing our excellent writing through this idea of shared foundational concepts. So when we look at the trial by media, I've got some discussion questions for you. There's a really interesting article called How Trial by Media Can Undermine the Courtroom. This article will be very, very helpful for you in the Project 2 essay. You can use it as one of your sources, and I would highly recommend you do that. So check it out. Make sure you answer these questions. It will really, really help you in the essay as it makes you more familiar with the ideas of trial by media. Then we're going to be viewing a PowerPoint called Frame Justice, where I elaborate on these concepts more. And then we'll start talking about Project 2 essay already. Isn't that crazy? And so we're going to look at the case list. And then on Thursday, you're going to tell me what project you might be interested in researching. Now, this does not mean you have to do this project. It just means that this is one of the ones that you're interested in. So you're going to pick 2 cases that you're interested in, and for each case, you're going to tell me what the case is, give me a little summary. You can use Wikipedia or Google to come up with those summaries. 2, how do you think the abundance of media coverage affected the case? And what do you think about the Sixth Amendment? Do you anticipate any trouble finding research? And then show me a couple places where you found information. You're going to do all 5 of these for both cases, 2 cases from our case list. And you'll post that up here. I'll go through and kind of help you as I'm giving feedback, say, hey, this case looks like it'll fit really well for you. Or maybe we need to find some alternative sources, that kind of stuff. And then we'll be working on our thesis statements and our outlines already. So this is a much more accelerated format, you'll notice. So do stay on top of things. I want to make sure that you've got time to be successful. So pace yourself. You know how long it takes you to write an essay, so make sure that you're setting yourself up for success there. And everything you need for this project is located in our modules tabs. Just like we had for project 1, there's a whole folder to help you out. So we're all done with project 1. We can minimize that bad boy. Here's project 2. So here's the Frame Justice PowerPoint you guys are going to be watching tomorrow. Here's the recorded lecture for it. So do make sure to watch that in its entirety. Lots of really good ideas for you. I've got the trial by media topic idea list in a doc form. And then we talk a little bit about logical fallacies. And I want you to check out those logical fallacies as well, because that can be a part of your trial by media essay. Then I've got supporting materials, just like we had last time. Here's the article for How Trial by Media Can Undermine the Courtroom that you'll be reading today. If you want some additional sources that might help you in this essay, there's an article linked for you about conviction bias in juvenile cases. There's a link to an awesome website called the Innocence Project, which looks at cases that have already resolved. So these people are in prison. The Innocent Project goes back and makes sure that their trials were fair and that they got justice. And then I've got a couple more articles linked for you here. One is Pretrial Publicity's Limited Effect on the Right to a Fair Trial. So this article says that all of this publicity really doesn't have an impact on cases. And then this article says this pretrial publicity does have an impact on cases. So I want to give you both sides of this argument. And so we've got 2 sources here. One that says you can talk about it all you want on social media, people are still getting a fair trial. And this one says, when you talk about it lots on social media, people are not getting a fair trial. So you've got both sides of the coin here to help you make your decisions. And then for the essay itself, you're going to want to watch the lecture video on the research and outline and thesis worksheet, just like we had that lecture for project 1. We once again have a very helpful lecture for project 2. I've got the prompt for you here, the essay outline, the worksheet, the rubric, so you know exactly how I'm going to grade it. As I'm glancing through your project 1s, I'm seeing that we could vary our sentence structure a little bit when we're introducing quotes. So I've got a link for you here for signal phrases, for quotes, paraphrases, and summaries to help you out. And then some people find it helpful to look at sample essays. So I've included 3 sample essays for you in project 2 because this is a much accelerated writing process. Sometimes it helps to see people who have gone before. Now, none of these essays are perfect essays. I would say they are in the A and B range for essays. So they still have areas where they could be improved, but they do offer some examples of how you could structure this essay, how you could make an argument about specific cases. And then if you need some inspiration for proofreading, I've got some great moments where people did not proofread carefully and made horrible, horrible errors. So lots of good stuff here for you in the Trial by Media section. So make sure you watch the Framed Justice lecture right here to get you started. Make sure you watch the lecture video on the research outline and thesis worksheet, and you should be good to go for this project. As always, if you have any questions, reach out. I'm here to help, and we will begin thinking about our cases and working toward writing our cases under consideration by Thursday. Have a great week, guys, and reach out with any questions.